one place the Democrats did do okay was here in New York. They flipped 3 House seats, including ours, right here in central New York. They passed the state equal rights amendment and picked up a seat in the Assembly and still have a majority in the state Senate. Our local Senate district is too close to call and heading for a recount. So Tara, what's working for the Democrats, at least in New York?
Well, what's working is they focused on local issues. They focused on economic issues. I'll just take Mannion, for example. He benefited initially from the redistricting, which sort of removed a lot of conservatives.
That always helps, right?
Yes. Moved sort of the most conservative of the part of the district, so he benefited from that. But he also benefited from the fact that, yes, he mentioned reproductive rights, but he also, almost in everything you read, everything you saw, it's reproductive rights. And by the way, I helped get Micron, I helped get Amazon here. So it was a twofold argument, economics and reproductive rights. And how can we improve central New York? He also benefited from some of the places where he went to speak to the public as well.
And Proposition 1 passed, and that by a pretty healthy margin, which was, I thought, kind of surprising, especially since the emphasis on girls' sports and transgender issues. Donovan?
No, I also was surprised, although not that much. I was more surprised that it passed in many other states, in fact, and with very large margins. Florida showing 57%, almost near the supermajority that they wanted. You know, again, confounding things, right? Everybody said NY22 would be a very close race between Mannion and Williams. Didn't happen. When Mannion went by a very large amount, right? The only, the Molinaro and the Riley race, which was the costliest apparently, right? Riley wins by an extremely hair-length margin there, right? So again, New York 4, which is, I think, downstate. Gillen won, again, 1%. But other than that, Democrats kind of pretty much did very well with double-digit margins. So I think New York holds the line. I don't know, for the Democrats at least.
What about in terms of state government? We have a Democrat. It's not a supermajority now, but they don't need one because it's a Democratic governor.
It's a trifecta, right?
It's a trifecta.
Yeah, and what do we expect locally?
Well, one of the things that I'm wondering about is, will there be sort of I don't want to say backtracking, that's not the right word, but will we be sort of as progressive in some of the legislation that has been passed up to this point, knowing that you had a Democratic president, you had that slim majority in the Senate? Will the governor, for example, be quite as strong on some of the more progressive issues than she has in the past?
Well, the electorate seems to have sent a message that maybe she shouldn't be. Ben?
Yeah, I will also say that Proposition 1 on the ballot did not say anything about transgender, which ended up being one of the more effective ads for the Trump campaign, about Kamala being for they, them, and Trump being for you. And I think that if you didn't look it up, you didn't know that was part of the wording.
Yeah, that ad was very, I think, very effective. And it, if you watch the World Series, it was on every inning. Between every inning, that ad was on. What about Governor? Oh, actually, no, excuse me. I wanted to get back to local news because you had mentioned local news, Jenny.
Right.
So what's the impact there?
Well, so I guess one of the things I'm concerned about is at the federal level, I think we're going to see more power placed back on the states. And given that, then the public needs stronger local and state level news coverage of what's happening in their state legislatures. And when I lived in Albany, I was at SUNY Albany for a decade. And because I was in Albany, I had a much clearer sense of what was happening with the legislature. Since I've now been here in Syracuse, it is much harder to know what is actually happening in the halls in Albany. And that worries me because that's not unique to us. That's across the nation. Gannett and other news outlets have been purchased by venture capital firms and basically gutted. And so we really need to be thinking about how we bolster state level and local news so the public really understands what's being passed on behalf of the people.
Right, but again, it's not just having a local newspaper correspondent in Albany if nobody's picking up the newspaper anymore.
100%, right. So there is the incentive structure to get people to pay more attention to local news, and that's a challenge too.
So we give a shout out here to the Albany Times Union, which is a good newspaper. I subscribe.
Good newspaper.